Welcome to this special Australian Businesses Abroad for Business Success. I'm Chloe James. During a recent trip to London, I had the privilege of sitting down with some pretty impressive Aussies and New Zealanders who are making waves across the pond. This episode is an interesting one, highlighting how to take an incredibly successful Australian business overseas. The team at finder.com.au say it's their goal to simply make sure you find what you're looking for. Whether it's saving money, getting more rewards, or just learning something new, their comparison site compares a variety of product types across cards, loans, savings, insurance, shopping, I love that one, and technology. First up tonight, I'll be chatting to Fred Schebesta, who is the co-founder of finder.com.au, before we head across to London and hear some top tips from his UK CEO Jon Ostler about what it takes to grow an Aussie business overseas. Fred Schebesta used to help many of Australia's biggest financial institutions and telcos save money and get more return on their investment from their online marketing spend. In 2007, he won the ADMA Young Direct Marketer of the Year and subsequently got to a point where he felt he could be more impactful if he applied this knowledge and effort towards building a comparison service to bring competition to the fairness in the banking space in Australia. And so, Finder.com was born. Fred joins me on Business Success. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Chloe. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. So tell me, I think this is a really exciting episode. We're going to have a chat to you and then we're going to cross to Jon, who I spoke to in London just a couple of weeks ago, who's taking Finder to London. And I know you're in the US as well. Let's just kick off with finder.com.au. I'm sure most people know what it is, but just give me the little rundown on the business to start with.
Yeah, sure. I guess we're a comparison service. Our goal and our belief is to better all the world's decisions. And we're trying to be the Amazon of comparison, so you can compare anything at Finder. Obviously, we started in Australia, and now we're doing that in the US, the UK, and we're expanding to another 10 countries around the world.
Wow, pretty massive.
Yeah.
Massive stuff. I said in the opener that you sort of started in banking and sort of financial services, and then you obviously saw the need for the comparison there. Tell me a little bit about that journey from going from that background to what you're doing now.
Yeah, I guess, we used to build websites and market, other financial institutions' services.
Mm-hmm.
But now what we're trying to do, when we're doing that, we're like, well, why can't we do that ourselves and help them? So we thought instead, why don't we write guides? And then we've got now 20,000 guides on the site.
Wow.
There's a massive gap of information and still so much financial literacy that needs to be done in Australia and all around the world. We thought we could help a lot of people actually make a great decision. So there's a lot of information, that's actually not on the internet as well. And we do a lot of work in getting that and putting it on the internet. So there's a lot of very unique information that people can make decisions around.
Yeah, I love the piece on financial literacy. I think that's a really important space in Australia and globally as well. Is that really important to you?
Massive, yeah. I was a struggling entrepreneur. So Frank and I used to eat spaghetti every night. Frank's the co-founder of Finder. Yeah. And if we didn't have that, then we used to get all the other tins and put them together and then sort of mix them up, and that was interesting nights.
Nice.
We used to try and save money any way we could.
Yeah.
We just wrote about our experiences, and I started writing about, student credit cards in the beginning, and then talking a lot more about credit cards and things like that. And Frank and I have always lived very, very frugally. I think we talked about, I wear my shoes until they're completely all the way worn through.
Yep, I love that. I saw it on LinkedIn the other day. I love it.
Yeah. We're just very, very, naturally we're like that. And I think a lot of people at Finder appreciate that, and a lot of the community around the website appreciates that. And our goal is, 50% of the people who go to Finder don't actually convert on our site. They go direct. But that's great, because our goal and what we believe in is to better all the world's decisions, because there's a lot of decisions out there people are making, and unfortunately that, they're probably paying a bit too much. Okay. And what it inhibits people from doing is actually living out their dreams in their life. Because they don't have that money, they don't have that financial freedom, and so that's what we're trying to solve.
Yeah, and you absolutely are solving it. I think it's really interesting. We hear about Australia being one of the most expensive places to live in the world. So this is important, right? People are comparing, making their choices, and your product is absolutely defining them doing that. When you were starting out, what were some of the biggest sort of toughest challenges when you were building the site and the platform? And I guess it was just the two of you, and then I want to talk about how I'm sure that team is massive now.
Yeah. I got to say, I actually discovered I'm not actually the best, operator. I actually discovered I drove the actual site into the ground. We got penalised by Google a few times in the beginning, so there was massive challenges.
Yes.
And so, that's all right. What I found actually, my actual thing I bring to Finder is I'm really good at inspiring and finding great people.
Yeah, okay.
And so I spend my whole time trying to find people and then coach them and let them be great. They're the people at Finder. There's 120 full-time staff now, and they are the crew that make that site great. It's not me, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
I may have started it on my kitchen table with Frank and myself, but that doesn't mean it's definitely never been about us with Finder. It's about the crew that are on there. And they are amazing. They're the people who make and help so many people all around the world now and make that business. It wasn't me.
Yeah. Tell me. Well, I'm sure it was a little bit you, but tell me how did you find them? So advice for entrepreneurs and business owners out there when they're building the right team, finding the right talent. What do you look for? What do you look for in the members of your team? And you speak about them so passionately, which is awesome.
So I think that one of the first things I look for is coachability.
Okay.
That they, open and interested in listening and hearing about, how we approach things. Another thing I look for is hunger. I tell a lot of stories out to people, and we actively make it very difficult to get into Finder. So it's not easy to get a job at Finder. And we don't look for people who want jobs. If you want a job, there's plenty of other banks and big companies out there that people will give you a job. You don't get jobs at Finder, you get more than that, you get a journey. We're trying to build something, we're trying to do something, we're on a mission. And if you don't have that hunger, you don't have that passion, that's one thing. And the last thing I look for is proactivity. So a small example, and for entrepreneurs out there, what I do is I set up a lot of tests. So one of the ones I always talk about is I never give the address of where the interview is.
Okay.
So if you're having an interview with me, you'll never know. And they ask me where the address is. If you can't Google that, where the Finder office is, where all those people already are, then clearly you're not that proactive.
Yeah, right.
You're probably not going to get a job at Finder.
No, that's good. That's good. I hear my CEO says a lot of similar things about sort of ways that he hire, and we talk a lot about culture of like hiring for culture.
Yes.
Would you believe in that as well? Obviously, you're looking for the right kind of person. Culture's super important.
Massively. I protect the Finder culture ruthlessly. In fact, we sort of made a real recent change back to we sort of were losing our way a little bit in the Finder culture, and we sort of really brought that back and brought back that we have the third value of Finder is called Go Live, and it's actually one of our competitive advantages is that we have a bias to putting things live on the internet, and succinctly what it means is pretty much. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this show or not, but everything is a pile of something, doo-doo. Yeah, okay. Until it's on the internet at Finder. Yeah. If it's not on the internet, it doesn't mean a single thing. Yeah. And everyone knows that. Everyone, every coder on their first day of Finder puts something live. Every writer writes something live. Yeah. Everyone even if you're a recruiter, you send an email out to recruit. You do stuff. We go live at Finder. So it's real autonomy, right? You're giving your staff autonomy. I want to talk. We've only got a couple of minutes to go, but I want to talk a little bit about building the business overseas because that's where we're going to go to next in the show. How have you selected sort of Jon for this role? Be careful what you say. He's probably going to watch it back. But how do you pick someone to put them in a different market, and how do you then work in that market? I mean, everywhere's so different. I know you're in the US, UK. Tell me a little bit about that. So, luckily, Jon worked with Frank and I at our previous business, where we sold a company into another parent company. So we knew Jon. Never actually worked, directly with him, but we knew a lot of his values and his attitude and the way he develops his crew and the rigorous methodologies that he thinks. It's all in attitude. He didn't even know anything about comparison in the beginning, but that doesn't matter at Finder. It's not about the skills you have at Finder, it's the attitude. Yeah. It's again, one of our competitive advantages. You get huge competitive drive at Finder. People who want to be number one, they want to win. Yeah, yeah. And he had that, and we knew that. And it was a relatively fast conversation. Yeah. He has a passion for being great. He wants to be great. Yeah. And that's one thing. He grew up in the UK actually, but spent a long time in Australia and New Zealand, so he can empathise with Australia and how that business has started. Yeah. He's also run a business in the US as well. But then he also knows that UK market. Correct. He knows the local market. Okay, so that's probably something else that you could recommend, I guess, to other people building things growing out. Fred, I do just want to kind of ask you a couple more things before we wrap. Where to next, just quickly? Obviously a huge amount of growth there, and then a little bit more about you, sort of what drives and inspires you in business particularly. Yeah, so we're trying to be the, I guess, the next, some people call it the next tech unicorn of Australia.
Yeah.
So, you know, a lot of people talk about there's a fluke, that there aren't many technology unicorns in Australia, and especially in financial services, and we think, why not? Why can't Australia do that? And we want to be that. So we're working really, really hard. We've got, as I said, 10 countries we're rolling out to right now, and working overtime on that. It's amazing. It's an exciting time. You know, I think at the end of the day, as I said, the Amazon of comparison, we think there's a great opportunity around the world for a global comparison service.
Yeah.
And why not?
Fantastic. Just quickly, what do you do in your personal life that you see contributing to your business success? Because you sound pretty busy.
Well, you know, I'm very inspired by my my two little girls. They're amazing, and my mom's a great inspiration. I think I've been on this show as well previously. She's been as well. She's amazing. But I subscribe to a lot of exercise. So I try and exercise 3 times a week. And I have a great personal trainer, Dylan. He's down at Bondi, if you guys need a trainer. Awesome. But I think the continuous application of fitness to an entrepreneur allows you to get through those really tough and emotional times. Because a lot of the time you're actually just fighting yourself. The business is doing really well, but most of that energy, that you continuing to keep going, you need to have that pause and it's really hard to do. To find that time, but that's probably, I think.
But it's important to find it. Listen, thank you so much, Fred, for coming on Business Success. We're going to chat to Jon after the break, hear from him in London. Stay with us and we'll hear from Finder in the UK. Welcome back to Business Success. I'm Chloe James. Jon Ostler is the man in charge of bringing Australia's #1 comparison site to the UK. We sat down in London recently where he explained exactly how he plans to do it. Here it is. Tell me a little bit about who you are, what you do, and Finder. What's the business all about?
So Finder is Australia's leading personal finance comparison site. We've been leading the market in Australia for about 10 years. And in 2015, we expanded into the US, and this year we've decided to expand into the UK as our next market.
Fantastic, and that's where you come in, right?
That's right, yes. So I've spent some time down under. I'd been in New Zealand 13 years running digital agencies.
Wow.
Ended up in Sydney, Australia for 3 years, and then moved back 3 years ago to the UK. And you know, at the end of last year, the founders, Fred and Frank, of the business, tapped me on the shoulder and asked me how I'd feel about launching Finder.com in the UK market.
Fantastic. Did they deliberately want sort of a Brit, obviously, to kick things off over here? And also tell me a little bit about challenges with bringing an Australian business to the UK.
I think it helps having locals, and luckily they'd known me for quite a few years, so that was a bit easier decision for them to make and trust someone to run their business and represent their business in a faraway market. So, yeah, it's a bit of a challenge launching on the other side of the world. And so that's something we've been working through as far as communication. So a lot of video conferencing, a lot of Slack as far as communication tools to keep in touch with the core business. We have about 100 staff in Sydney, and so there's a lot of IP there that we need to tap into. And so, yeah, luckily modern technology makes it much easier than it used to be.
Well, Slack is a really interesting one, and a lot of the entrepreneurs I speak to on the show use that as a tool. How else do you do your sort of communications? Are you awake at all hours? and how do you kind of operate as a leader and leading the team here, and obviously bringing expertise from back in Australia?
Yeah, it's a bit of a challenge. We've also got offices in Santa Monica and New York, and trying to get everyone on a video call means someone's up in the middle of the night. So we you know, you need staff that are flexible, and we're all happy. We're pretty committed and pretty flexible to do evening calls or early morning calls. One trick we do video internal presentations and even meetings, so we can share those with other members of the team around the world, rather than doing meetings 2 or 3 times.
So you film them and then share them on, and people can watch them when they're in the office. That's really great advice for businesses. I think working around the world. How sort of, we're talking about the comparison market. That must be massive in the UK, I would have thought. Tell me how you're tackling it, and perhaps some of the biggest challenges and how you're overcoming them in these early stages.
Yeah, very early days for us. The top 6 sites in the UK, I think they turn over about £1.2 billion in revenue, so it's a significant market. It's obviously very competitive. The players have been established here for some time, but I think we bring something fresh to the market. Growing up in an Australian ecosystem outside of the UK, where everyone's been competing here. So I think we've evolved differently, got a different approach to empowering users to make decisions about switching products. So I think we're coming from a slightly different angle, and I think that's going to resonate with a large number of the users.
Yeah, I love the coming at it from a different angle, and I always like to ask sort of, your point of difference. So how are you coming at it from a different angle, and what are some of the sort of tools and tricks that you're using there?
I guess we take it more holistically than just straight out price comparison, which is sort of the traditional table of prices and you pick the cheapest, which is not actually how most of us shop. We very rarely go out and buy the cheapest product. We go out and we evaluate the quality of the product, the service, the reputation, the features. So I think there's a lot more to comparison than just the price, and I think that's one thing that we bring to it. We also try and inform our consumers, so we try and give them education in a non-judgmental way. And then really empower them to make the decision that's best for them with their own personal circumstances.
I love that you always say we, and you're obviously a very sort of team guy, which I think is great. Do you have any advice when it comes to building, the right team and hiring the right talent, especially in such a competitive space when you need to be moving really, really quickly?
Yes, no, that's people is definitely the major challenge. We've got good processes and systems, so it's people that's the key. We have quite a strong culture within Find. We realised that was our point of difference in how we run the company and how we look after our staff. And we try and build a company and an environment that's going to provide people with the best jobs of their lives. That's sort of something we talk about. And I think if we can communicate that through to candidates, then that attracts high-performing candidates that want a company that think about them and is a bit different.
So perhaps it's about attracting them from the sort of offset. So it's before they even come into the business, you're telling them, what they'll kind of get when they're a part of the business, which is great advice for leaders out there. And
I think that's part of having a kind of culture framework, kind of communicating, because we want to hire people that match our culture. We want to hire people with aptitude and attitude. So we have a bit of a framework. You mentioned teamwork and being we. So one crew is one of our mottos. So no matter what your job title is, we'll all band together as one crew and sort of sort out whatever needs to be sorted out.
A one crew hashtag?
One crew hashtag, that's it. Yeah, we've got quite a few of those. And empowering people is another key part. So, that's really key to my role, is empowering people by improving their skills and their confidence in their roles, understanding their roles and really helping them be the best they can be. Yeah,
I love the empowering, and it's sort of giving people anonymity to really succeed and flourish, especially in that startup culture. It's so important, isn't it?
Yeah, so although we've got 130 staff around the world, we very much like the startup culture. So we like to test small, test often, and then invest in what's working. And that's sort of how we keep moving. We call it go live. So we just go out there, we get stuff up, test and measure, and just keep rolling every day. Yeah, fail fast, fail quickly, I think they say. That's fantastic. What advice have you been given sort of starting out our business in the UK, and as a leader, advice you've been given, and perhaps advice that you'd give to others in a similar situation? Yeah, I guess best advice I've always been given is written goals. So I've always, from very early on, from when I was 19, I've always had written goals, both business goals and personal goals. And that's something that we do at Finder as well. We do 60-day goals. After 60 days, we celebrate what's been successful, and we plan out the next 60 days. So setting written goals, I think, is very important for everybody. Personal advice, I guess, apart from the test often, and be flexible, and not assume that what works in one market will work in another market. Obviously, Australia, the US, the UK, completely different markets. So do your research, do your planning. Don't underestimate the amount of investment that's required to get into a market seriously. And so, yeah, tick those boxes and you'll be good.
Really fantastic advice, Jon. I love it. Where to next for Finder? Obviously, great things. I'm sure you're going to say, but where to next?
A lot of work to do. So we've entered 2 huge markets, the US and the UK. So those are quite challenging markets, but the rewards are there, which is obviously why we're here. We'll be rolling out in a number of other countries as well, and mixing up a bit, some emerging markets, some Asian markets, some South American markets. So again, really test what works for us and invest in those markets. So there'll be a lot more of Finder.com around the world very soon.
Awesome. Well, they say if you can crack it in the US, and I guess the UK, you can make it anywhere. So
exactly. We thought we'd take on the 2 hardest markets first.
Why not? Well, there you go, a high achiever. That's what we like to see. Just finally, Jon, we've got to wrap up soon, but what do you do in your personal life, if you have one, that you see contributing to your business success?
Yeah, I guess it's pretty simple. It comes down to having a very smart and supportive wife. So that's always put me in good stead. And also I've got two daughters, which give you that sort of unique teenager perspective on the world, which you don't get in the office, which in digital I think is very important.
Excellent. Good man. I love that you gave them a shout out. Thank you, Jon, so much for coming on the series today. It's been great to chat to you.
Thanks for having me.
That's it from me at Business Success for another week. I hope you enjoyed tonight's show. Having success on our shores is one thing, but surely it's the dream of any entrepreneur to keep going and growing. Thanks, of course, for watching, and see you next week. Good night.